It's nice to be amongst new friends, isn't it? As part of the NHL, the 32nd franchise, puck drop sometime in fall of 2021. So let's catch up then with Adidas, who've been integral to building this team's name, the logo and the jersey. Matty Merrill and Nick Corbett from the company have been filling me in on how we got to this position.
Ross, it's been an exciting journey. It's been a little over 18 months, and it's we appreciate your intro because it is rewarding to finally see the finish line. The opportunity really came up when the team was announced, and where we are not just provided the obligation or the right to work with the team on any identity project, whether it's a new franchise like Seattle or an existing one. We asked for those opportunities, and that was the position we were in with Seattle. When the team was announced, we had the opportunity to talk with Todd and Jerry Bruckheimer and other leaders within the team and ask for the opportunity. And the time was really, really unique in that the NHL was just in the middle of celebrating its first 100 years and looking forward to the next 100 years. And what we shared with the ownership group was we were committed to the sport. We were committed to bringing and infusing a global brand's perspective and energy into not just the design itself, but the conversation around the name and mining the information, the rich history in Seattle. And we shared with them our body of work. At that point in the relationship with the NHL, we had a number of firsts. We had a sustainable jersey that we debuted at the All-Star game in San Jose. We had redesigned digitally the original 6 NHL hockey uniforms in partnership with EA. And the momentum was there, and our body of work was growing. And we asked for the opportunity, and the expectations and the bar was raised very high, and we're excited to share the end product.
And Nick, Adidas, it's a global brand. It's massive, but you're relative newcomers to hockey. So how did that influence the outcome? How much of that is kind of a fresh thing you could bring to this?
Well, it's not just stepping outside of a hockey mentality, and we have plenty of hockey knowledge, but it's really bringing the power and design expertise of a global brand. We know what it's like to design and serve the world's best athletes, football athletes, global football athletes, tennis athletes, the world's best golfers. And we were able to mine those resources internally at Adidas and enlist their help on this project.
And so, Matty, let's really start drilling down into the name and identity. What went into deciding something that was always going to have so many people with so many different opinions?
Oh, man, so many opinions, and most of them strong. There's not a lot of people who have a soft opinion about what the name of their pro team from their hometown is called. We talked to a lot of people, and we did a lot of listening. You know, the New York Times had a very broad survey that we used as a resource. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so I talked to a lot of my friends. You have to be very careful to be vague. You know, I don't want to be the source of a leak. And we talked to players. We talked to athletes as well. Like Nick said, we have access to these athletes. Sid Crosby is on our roster. We've got a lot of really high, probably the best hockey athletes in the world are Adidas athletes. And so we talk to them and get their opinions, because really this uniform needs to represent, and the ID, the colors, everything needs to represent the Seattle people, Seattle fans, but also those players are going to wear that out on their chest, literally over their heart onto the ice. And it needs to be something they can be proud of and want to go out to defend.
And what, Matty, was some of the pillars, the language that you got to use, the idea behind what this name should be? You think of authenticity and nobility and mystery. Can you explain those language choices?
Those are the three, man. We, when you're doing a project of this scope, I mean, at one point we had over 1,000 names, like just boards and boards and boards of names, all organized by theme or type, sea names, mountain names. We had one whole group that was just like angry things, animals and creatures. We ended up, you have to sort of come up with some values that you're going to hit back to. And authenticity, nobility, and mystery were the three. And authentic is what I was just talking about. It has to make sense to the Seattle fans and the Seattle athletes. This is Seattle's team, their ID, their colors. I see them and right away I know they're mine, or I understand why they are. So they have to be authentic. And Seattle has an authentic hockey history that we're going to reference as well. There has to be nobility in the ID. I mean, the name Kraken already has a lot of like energy and excitement in it. So there's plenty of energy there and plenty of wild. Now we need to bring back the nobility, because Seattle it's this beautiful city, emerald, set among beautiful waterways and lakes in the Sound. They look at the tallest mountain from head to toe in North America is right in their backyard. And they're an innovative people. Seattle people are constantly innovated and created the new, from Boeing to Amazon, Microsoft, always pushing it. And they have a high esteem. They expect the best. So this team needed to be noble. It had to play to the highest esteem of the people of Seattle. And then lastly, mystery. That's the beast, right? We knew we had to depict this monster, but how to do that? And at one point, we kind of had this epiphany that, what's scarier than the theater of the mind? That killer in the Hitchcock movie that you don't actually even see, that monster who's lurking. You can tell that there's something in the water or in the bushes somewhere, but you can't see it, or can't sense it yet. Just sort of, you can't see it yet. You can just sense it. And so we knew when we depicted the monster, it needed to be this mysterious beast. Yeah, those are the three, and we were able to build those into the colors first, the ID second, and the uniform third.
So, Matty, you talk about mystery there with the Kraken. Does that mean that we'll never fully see the Seattle Kraken?
That is something we ideated on for quite a while. It's like, what is the timeline? At what point do we ever show the full beast? So there's big conversations about it, and definitely some outlines sort of sketched out. I can't tell you right now when that beast would be revealed or how, but for right now, we're sort of leaving the sort of using symbolism as a way to sort of hint at the presence of that beast. Hopefully some people will look at the ID and look at the uniform and like it, but all the while, the tentacles or the claws are wrapping themselves around that fan, getting ready to pull them in to the deep end of being a Kraken fan in Seattle.
Yeah, Matty, I'd love to in a few minutes just get into more of the detail about the logo and that S, and you reference some of Seattle's hockey history from Seattle Metropolitans. But Nick, I want to go back to something you said earlier about the journey, that this was 18 months in the making. So much input. What about the hurdles along the way too?
Well, an effort of this size and the opportunity to partner with the team from the day one is bound to have hurdles and obstacles. And we had those, and we want to acknowledge that. But a lot of those hurdles came out of the strong opinions that the leadership team in Seattle held around what the brand stood for. And as we continue to show them work and discuss the criteria around the name and collaborate with them on that, they continue to push us. And while there was moments where no doubt we frustrated Jerry and Andy and Todd and the rest of the team, there were also moments where we know that we hit the right spot, and they would continue to push us further and further. And there was a number of moments, the sidebars after a meeting where they would grab us by the arm and say, "We love the direction you're going. We believe the direction you're going. Just give us more." And that's what we wanted, and that's what we expected. Ultimately, we want to partner with people who make us better, and we did. And we're better for the effort, and we're really, really proud of the end product. We believe that those hurdles that we overcame during the last 18 months really resulted in a mark that honors the history of hockey in Seattle, but also really has an eye to the future.
because there were, 1,200 names considered, weren't there? And quite a few went through to even greater scrutiny. But every time, Nick, it seemed that Kraken kept rising to the top, didn't it?
Yeah, Kraken was always in the background, and it's always dangerous to handicap the list as they got smaller and smaller, and we tried not to do that ourselves. But it was a favorite, and Todd, from the outset of the effort, was really clear that we needed to listen to the fan, that he was listening to the fan, and that was really important. That the end product needed to be something that the fan could adopt as their own from day one. It needed to have some instant equity in it. And we took that to heart in the design process. But as these other names were floating around, and it's difficult to pick a name, and a Kraken was always there, and it was so unique. And we kept asking ourselves, does this name belong on the Stanley Cup? And we believe that it does. And that name had to rise to that level.
Matty, let's dig down now into the logo and the colours themselves. I'm wearing the logo right now. It looks absolutely fantastic. Where do you start with something like this, which is effectively a blank slate?
Oh man, color is it's the first way that the fan's going to interact with this brand, right? They're going to see it from a distance or up close. It is just one of the most simple ways to communicate. And so it needed to make sense for Seattle in the place. It needed to make sense in the sport of hockey and sort of look professional. But it needed to be new and different. And we went up back and forth from Portland to Seattle many, many times. We wore out I-5 going up there to get inspiration. And one of the things we noticed is obviously the natural beauty of Seattle. I guess I should also say we had to listen to the fans, right? We listened to the fans when it came to the name. We also listened to the fans when it came to the color. And they were very clear with the survey that Seattle conducted. Fans wanted blue and or green. One of those two colors had to be in the palette. And once we chose the name Kraken, and once that was the team, blue was the obvious choice because it's a sea creature, sea, water, those things are blue. But the exact color combination, that came from one of those trips. When we looked out and we saw, the blue sky, Olympics, then sort of the rocky gray down to the blue of Puget Sound, the sort of spectrum of tones of blues. We're like, wow, why don't we do something in that area and start exploring that? And that tonality allowed us of the sort of dark navy with the bright ice blue, the deep sea blue, which is like it's almost like a night navy, and the ice blue. Combining those two together created something new and original. There's almost no white, there's no white in the home jersey. Very unusual, completely fresh take on sport colors.
And talk us through the logo then, because this is something that is incredibly detailed. And we saw a video earlier and the fans were able to see how the logo builds all the way up to that red eye. Talk to us about the special elements that have got into it.
Well, that was one of the big aha moments. We talked about thousands of names. There were also thousands of logo ideas across the multiple names and just across Kraken as well. There were dozens and dozens and dozens. But it was that first black letter S that we put up on the wall, which is a calligraphic form of the S that we used. Once we saw that, it was like, oh, wow, that feels very, has a status. It feels very regal. Like that makes a lot of sense. And then we noticed that ships, most often when they have a name on the back, it's called a quarterboard, and it's carved in. That beveling, that carving, and the woodcraft that goes into shipbuilding made a lot of sense. It's for the culture of the sea. So we knew we had the S and the black letter form, and then we had the bevel, which comes from the sea. Now we need to add that one thing that surprised, that element, or that mysterious element. And that was at first the negative space of the tentacle in the S. A lot of times the black letters have sort of nesting elements. We could turn that negative space into an actual object. And that's the Kraken sort of reaching up, preparing to pull your opponent down or pull that fan in to becoming a Kraken fan. I don't know what they're going to be called.
They'll figure it out. They won't take long.
But you got two options to choose from there. Edit in the one you want. And it was for a long time. It was just the S, the bevel, the black letter form, and the negative space. It was only one of the very last meetings where we were trying to nail down final approval on the logo, where David Bonderman pointed up at the S and just with a strong one singular gesture is like, there should be an I right there. Why don't you try that? Put an I right there.
And David Bonderman is the majority owner for those people that aren't quite in the loop.
Yes. Yeah, when he speaks, you listen, right? That kind of an owner, that role in the team. And so we did. We tried it. I honestly thought, I don't know, it seems like that might be a little bit heavy-handed. I was wrong. I think it really brings it to life, adds that splash of red that's so essential to represent the water and the beast at the same time. Yeah, it's been a kind of an amazing journey to see it all come together so well.
And then you place it on the jersey when the players take to the ice, and it will look spectacular, I'm sure. You blend it into the colours, which I'm wearing today as well, and which we're being regaling you with all morning. What about the jersey, Matty? What's so special about it?
We wanted, I mean, there's a lot of old school hockey folks in this organization. From Ron to the ownership, Mitch, all these, there's even, Jerry Bruckheimer is quite a hockey head. He still skates regularly. So these guys are old school hockey guys. And so they wanted a jersey that spoke to the classicism of hockey. And you also like just working on a hockey jersey is just such an amazing medium because you've got long sleeves, the huge crest on the front of the jersey, a bigger piece of artwork than really any sport jersey in the world. The stripes on the hem, there's just a lot of space to work with. And so what we did was we're like, okay, we need to do a classic hockey striping. There's not going to be any waves. We're not drawing waves on this thing. We're not going to draw bubbles. There's no tentacles wrapping around the arms. We need to break this down as a code. Because hockey stripes are essentially a code, a barcode that fans read. They know their team stripes, and they can recognize them when they put them on a panel of a hat, or they take that hockey stripe off the jersey and they put it on a sock. They know, they recognize that. It's a way to speak and identify each other as a specific team's fan. But there's a lot of pretty common stripes out there. What can we do that's original? So what we did is we used irregular size stripes and combined them, even had them touching each other. And we noticed that the Seattle Ferries, they have a paint job, and Boeing airplanes, the original 707, et cetera, they have a special paint job, and that is called a livery. Livery is the way you recognize a uniform of a certain kind of soldier too. So what's the paint job here? And we looked at the Seattle Ferries, and they have almost the same paint job for a century back. White on top with this band of navy or dark green and then navy on the bottom. So what's the livery for Seattle? And we have this, you almost can read it from the top down on the sleeves. You start with the ice from the mountains, and you move down to the other blue tones into the navy, which is the depths of the water. And then down there, low on the sleeve, is where you have that thin band of red that represents the monster deep within the deep waters there.
And we've talked so much about the beast, the untamable beast, but Nick, we've also alluded to the history, the hockey history in Seattle. This is a hockey town. You go back a century and you think of the Seattle Metropolitans, the first US team to win the Stanley Cup. And they're very much a part of this look of Seattle Kraken, aren't they?
They really are. And Matt and his team did a great job. That big mark on the front of the chest is a nod to the Metropolitans and the first US team to win the Stanley Cup. It's an iconic design. It's one that the city and the fans are familiar with. So it's hard not to draw inspiration from that and to connect the two. But again, still coming up with a mark that looks forward to the next 100 years and to the Stanley Cup coming back to Seattle.
And what about the pride in wearing that jersey, Nick? Fans want to put on that jersey and feel good about it in their city. What do you think this represents in terms of a pride of Seattle?
Well, we're confident that the fans will adopt it and make it their own. And that was part of the challenge that the leadership team in Seattle really put out there is they just didn't want an identity package that was hockey specific. They wanted it to meet the highest standards, aesthetic standards that the Seattle fan has, the Seattle sports fan. And we know that we want to win over not just the knowledgeable, passionate hockey fans, but there's a lot of future hockey fans in Seattle that we want to welcome into the family. And we know that this mark, the nod and the connection to its history are a great way to welcome them into the sport, to recognize that there is a heritage of hockey in Seattle and be that generation then that takes it forward.
And we're being a bit cruel today, I think, because we're letting people have a look at that jersey, but they aren't going to be able to grab it right now. Nick, what can you share? Any sneak peeks you can share on kind of the process before we can go out and pull that jersey on and buy it in the store?
Well, the design of a jersey is complicated enough, as Maddie briefly described. The manufacturing it is just as complicated, but we are excited to have jerseys that will be available for purchase close to when the team is announced and around draft, the expansion draft, and when the team actually takes the ice. We'll have other products for the fan to buy in August with the primary marks, and a great way to introduce them to the sport and start to show their pride and support of the team.
And Nick, now that you've both worn out I-5, what's next for you guys at Adidas Hockey?
Well, we're always looking for opportunities to create new designs and create better products for just the fan and the athlete. So we know those opportunities will come up. We'll continue to be committed to the partnership with the NHL. They have a number of great events, from the All-Star Game to the Outdoor Stadium Series that Maddie and his team do just superior work on. So as we come out of COVID and resume those games, we're excited about the designs that will result. But we're excited that this will hopefully inspire other teams to maybe want to take a look at their existing identity and perhaps bring it into the future. It's our goal to be an indispensable partner to every single team. So we're excited. We're excited for the future, for sure.
Yeah. We can't name names, but we're designing jerseys for 21-22 season already. And there's a lot of very big and historic teams on that list that are looking at third jerseys. So Seattle will have some pretty tough company out there on this. We're excited about where we are. And you asked about people in Seattle, like how they're going to look at this, how they're going to receive it. I have about, 30 family members. My dad's family is a very big, very into sports. His father, my grandfather, was one of the boys in the boat, the famed UW team. So there's a strong Seattle sport pedigree in my family. And
right.
That's how I knew this logo and this uniform had to be really strong, because if I didn't, if it wasn't, then I would have heard it for years and years and years from my sport-loving family. So hopefully you guys like it. Enjoy. And all my family and friends in Seattle.
So, Matty, you don't even need to go on social media to get instant reaction, do you?
Oh, my God. No, well, they've been hounding me for months and months for what the name is. And, God, I don't want to be the leak. So I've been very careful. My wife, she's been very careful. My kids, I've had to try to not tell them, because I don't want them to even speak of it at a family gathering. They tell one of their younger cousins, and then that cousin tells their dad, and the next thing you know, we got a big problem. So no, I don't have to look very far to get feedback, and they're very vocal about it.
Well, it was an 18th month journey that has produced a fantastic outcome. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. You can probably take a nice breath now, save some gas coming up and down I-5, and good luck with the next projects as well.
Thanks Ross. And we're excited to see the Kraken skate on the ice for the first time wearing the uniform.
Nick Corbett and Matty Merrill from Adidas, part of the fantastic team which have come up with the new name, logo and jersey, and they are quite fantastic as well, aren't they?